the developments surrounding Tanzania's recent political atmosphere have taken a dramatic turn, and the reactions now emerging on the international stage suggest a much deeper and more complex situation than initially understood. In the aftermath of CNN's released footage alleging the existence of mass graves linked to the post-election period, global scrutiny intensified. Now, the direct response from President Samia Suluhu Hassan has pushed this story to a level many did not expect, creating questions that demand careful and measured analysis. Before the full breakdown begins, viewers are encouraged to like this video, share it widely, and subscribe to AfriPlus News Channel for ongoing coverage of issues shaping governance, accountability, and geopolitical reactions. President Suluhu's public rebuttal to Western criticism delivered a firm and uncompromising message. No external government will dictate how Tanzania chooses to govern or lead its population. This assertive stance, coming at a moment of international concern, raises questions about sovereignty, accountability, and the balance of power between domestic leadership and global oversight. It also introduces a psychological dimension to the debate. When a government strongly rejects external pressure, does it reflect confidence in its internal processes or an attempt to insulate sensitive actions from global examination? How do viewers interpret such a forceful statement? Does it project leadership or does it deepen unresolved concerns?
Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan has criticized foreign nations for what she described as interference in Tanzania's internal affairs, accusing them of backing opposition claims that the October elections were flawed. Addressing the nation, President Samia pushed back against mounting pressure from several countries, including the United States, that are calling for an independent investigation into alleged human rights violations during the just concluded polls. She said such demands were shameful, arguing that external actors had no right to dictate how Tanzania should handle its affairs. Citizen TV's Ben Kirui tells us more.
In what marked her fourth national address on the matter of elections-related violence, President Samia Suluhu Hassan took on foreign nations, criticizing them for interfering with Tanzania's internal affairs, as seemingly angry Samia rebuking the continued international scrutiny over the deadly election violence.
Hawana hata aibu. Nje huko wanakaa Tanzania ifanye moja, ifanye mbili, ifanye tatu, halafu ndio itakuwa hivi. Who are you?
She noted that Tanzania had never questioned how other nations handled similar episodes. The European Parliament last week called for suspension of EU funds for Tanzania, citing the election-related violence. President Samia said even the funds foreign parties claim to be providing are far less than before.
Niwaulize, kwao hayatokei? Kwao hayatokei? Tumenyanyua sauti sisi kusema ya kwao? Wanadhania bado wao ni masters wetu, ni wakoloni kwetu. Kitu gani? Ni fedha chache wanayotugaia, na fedha yenyewe sasa hivi haipo. Tunafanya biashara, wao wapate na sisi tupate, ndipo tunaposimamia.
Addressing the nation during a meeting with the Dar es Salaam elders, President Suluhu went further to say that the unrest witnessed after the polls was deliberately orchestrated and financed by foreign powers seeking to destabilize Tanzania.
Nyuma hatukuwa tunapigwa mawe sana. Tuko tunahesabika tu ni nchi maskini inayoendelea polepole na nini, lakini tulivyofungua utajiri, tukatumia rasilimali zetu kwa utalii, tukatumia madini yetu kibiashara, tukatumia bahari yetu na maziwa yetu kujenga uchumi wetu. Hili sasa ndilo linaloumiza watu huko ulimwenguni.
President Samia also took aim at the opposition, alleging that they opted out of the election after sensing imminent defeat owing to the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi's strong support base. She dismissed the claims of unfairness in the process, despite the fact that the main opposition party had been barred from participating and its leader Tundu Lissu was charged with treason.
Hawakuzuiliwa na mtu, walikataa wenyewe kuingia kwa sababu walishajua wasingefanikiwa. Walishajua aibu ingewapata kwa kazi iliyofanyika na mwitikio wa wananchi kwa Chama cha Mapinduzi.
President Samia's podcast calls for nationwide anti-government demonstrations on December 9th intensify. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV.
The release of CNN's investigative footage alleging mass graves after the election has significantly amplified international debate. Such footage, although yet to undergo independent verification, immediately shifts public attention toward potential human rights violations and calls for transparency in Tanzania's political environment.
Mass burials. While CNN cannot independently verify the existence of mass graves, satellite imagery at the Kondo Cemetery before and after the protests shows disturbance in the soil which supports the allegation.
Who are you?
And many in the country see her comments as tone-deaf, divorced from reality, especially when hundreds of people are believed to have died.
Well, Tanzania's president is defending a brutal crackdown on unarmed protesters after a disputed election, claiming without evidence that they intended to overthrow her government. Samia Suluhu Hassan is defending security forces accused of killing hundreds of demonstrators after her re-election in October. Protesters said the vote was rigged because the president's main rivals were either jailed or disqualified. Today, President Hassan refused to acknowledge their grievances, saying young people were paid to demonstrate and had no reason at all to be on the streets. A CNN investigation found that security forces fired at unarmed protesters who posed no threat, in some cases even hunting them down. President Hassan says the crackdown was necessary.
Serikali ina wajibu. Tunaapa.
The government has a responsibility, and we swear to defend this country and its borders, to protect the safety of citizens and their property. And in that case, the force used is proportional to the threat.
Sasa.
So when we're told that we used too much force in that event, what was the smallest amount of force? Were we supposed to wait until the protesters, who had planned to overthrow the government, to succeed?
CNN's Zahra Maduro is following developments from Nairobi, Kenya, and joins us now live. Larry, certainly we're just listening there to the leader, not only backing the security forces who carried out this brutal attack on unarmed protesters, but blaming the protesters for what she's called a manufactured event. Just take us through her comments and the reaction you're seeing.
Linda, in other jurisdictions, governments would open misconduct proceedings against any police officers who use excessive force against guidelines, but that's not what's happening in Tanzania. And some in the country see this statement from President Samia Suluhu Hassan as an admission that she gave the shoot to kill order, and she's justifying the reason why. She claims young people were paid to go on the streets across the country by foreigners who were jealous of Tanzania's development, and that her government had no option but to use proportional force because they intended to overthrow her government, and that is why they did this. So even though she's launched a commission of inquiry into the events of that week after the election, when she shut down the internet, declared a curfew, gagged the media, and many of these killings are believed to have happened, she does not appear to be taking any responsibility or accountability for that. And many in the country see her comments as tone-deaf, divorced from reality, especially when hundreds of people are believed to have died in these protests. We don't know the exact number. The opposition says as many as 2,000 could have been killed, probably more. The government says that number is hugely exaggerated, but has refused to confirm the death toll. She also claimed, without evidence, and falsely so, that the opposition refused to participate in this election. The truth is, the opposition was barred from participating. The main opposition leader, Tundu Lissu, of the Chadema party, is in prison since April, charged with treason. He would face the death penalty if found guilty. And the second largest party, AfriPlus News Channel, did not participate as well. But she says it's all foreigners' faults. And she had this pointed criticism for the European Union Parliament and the foreigners criticizing the government.
Because of the shame that they would have lost the election, they have made up excuses supported by foreigners. They're shameless. Those foreigners keep saying Tanzania should do 1, 2, 3, then something will happen.
Who are you?
They think they're still our masters, our colonizers, because of the little money they gave us.
that is the alternate reality that President Samia Hassan has created, where her government is above criticism, and she claims that the opposition just didn't participate because they smelled defeat, because she's done such a great job in her first term that they were going to be defeated. The Electoral Commission gave her 98% of the vote, which many people say is improbable. But at the same time, Tunde Lissu, the main opposition leader, still in parliament, and she says young people have announced they will have more protests on December 9, which is Tanzania's Independence Day. She says they're ready. Whether it's Independence Day or Christmas, they will be ready. So that was this hour-long conversation in front of Tanzania's Dar es Salaam's elders, that's the commercial capital, which many in the country kind of watched with bewilderment as she went on and on and on, justifying what happened in those weeks and appearing to give answers that her commission of inquiry is supposed to be answering, Linda.
The severity of the claims presents a moral and ethical dilemma. What happens when allegations of mass casualties surface in the context of contested elections? How should responsible citizens, observers, and policymakers respond when reports of buried bodies emerge without clear explanations? And how would any government regain public trust after such unsettling claims circulate globally? The situation escalated further when several American senators, notably Senator Jeanne Shaheen, called for an independent investigation into the alleged killings and the possibility of government involvement or suppression of evidence. Her statement, asserting that the footage underscores disturbing actions aimed at silencing protesters, places significant weight on the need for accountability. This kind of international pressure introduces diplomatic tension and raises essential questions. When foreign legislators demand an inquiry into a sovereign state's internal affairs, does it strengthen the pursuit of justice, or does it risk fueling geopolitical friction? Should international voices press for investigations when local citizens may feel unsafe doing so? And does such external scrutiny reflect genuine concern or geopolitical influence? The call for an independent investigation into potential human rights violations also opens a broader conversation about justice and the mechanisms needed to protect civilian rights in politically tense environments. Independent investigations often serve as tools for transparency, but they can also be perceived as challenges to national authority. In this context, the debate becomes even more emotionally charged. If mass graves are proven to exist, what does this mean for the families searching for missing relatives? What does it mean for future elections? And how should societies respond when confronted with evidence that suggests political violence may have taken place beyond public view? Viewers may ask, should global media continue exposing potential violations even when governments condemn such coverage? How should media navigate the line between vigilance and interference? And what safeguards are needed to ensure accurate storytelling in politically charged contexts? In concluding this analysis, the developments in Tanzania represent more than political rhetoric or international disagreement. They reveal the fragile intersection between governance, accountability, and global oversight at a moment when both citizens and observers seek clarity. This story is still developing, and the world is watching because the consequences reach far beyond Tanzania's borders. Viewers are encouraged to share their perspectives respectfully in the comments section. What does this situation reflect about modern leadership, transparency, and human rights? What outcomes do viewers believe are necessary to restore confidence and trust? And what deeper lessons does this conflict teach about accountability in times of crisis? For those who find value in the depth and clarity of analysis presented on AfriPlus News Channel, supporting the channel is one of the best ways to ensure ongoing coverage. Viewers are encouraged to join the channel membership and, if possible, show support through Super Thanks. Every contribution strengthens the ability to deliver timely, responsible, and well-researched analysis. Disclaimer: this analysis is based solely on publicly available information and does not assert wrongdoing by any individual or government. All allegations referenced remain subject to verification. The content is intended for educational and analytical purposes in line with YouTube's community guidelines and does not promote violence, hate, or misinformation.